In this video I'm going to demonstrate the Grunge2 Photoshop action. So I'm going to work through 3 examples in this video tutorial. So firstly, I've got this photo here and we're going to be recreating this. So yeah, the action creates quite a grungy look to your photos, and you've got the ability to place a photo in the background. It often includes some paint splashes as well to overlay over your design. So I'll put a link to this hour down in the description if you want to download that and just follow along. So secondly, I'm going to open this photo and going to recreate this, and then in the third example, this photo, and going to recreate this. Okay, I'll just click through some more examples of the effect. Just create a bit of room here. Alrighty, I'll close all these down and we'll get started. Okay, I'll close that. Alright, so here I have the stock photo, and there's just a small checklist of things you just got to make sure it's set up correctly before you run the action, just to make sure you get no errors. So firstly, just double check if you look into your layer panel, your photo layer should look identical to this. It should say background and have that lock symbol. Okay. Generally, if you open up a photo with a transparent background, that's not going to be the case. So, for example, let's just pretend this had a transparent background. If I opened it up, it might be called, layer 1 or just something different, and it won't say background and have that lock symbol. So, to set your layer, your photo layer as a background, just go to Layer, New, Background from Layer, and that'll just set it as a background. Next, this will be cut off on my screen, but click on this little icon here and then scroll down to panel options. Okay, and just down the bottom here, just make sure add copy to copy layers and groups is ticked. Click OK. Next, go to image mode, make sure you're in RGB color mode and 8 bits a channel. And as always with any photo effect actions, it's best to work with high resolution photos. So you can see mine is 3350 by 2500. A good range for photo effect actions is between 2000 to 4000 pixels. Avoid using photos under 1000 pixels because the effects really won't look that great. It's better if you've got more pixels to work with, so keep that in mind. Alright, now what I need to do is I'll load up the brushes that were included in the download. So if I just hit B anywhere over the canvas and right click, that'll bring up the brush panel. If you click on this little icon here, then go down to load brushes or replace brushes, either one. Click on replace, and just select the grunge2 brushes.abr file that came with the download. Okay, and that'll appear in the brush panel there. Okay, so what I need to do now is create a new layer, and it needs to be called brush. So I'm going to go to layer, new layer, and this must be called brush, B-R-U-S-H, all in lowercase. Okay, and what the idea with the brush layer is that we want to trace around or brush over our subject. In this case, it's the owl. So I'm just going to do a really quick job here. I'm just going to grab my wand tool and I'm just going to click around the bird and just make a quick selection. It's not going to be perfect, but this is a grunge effect action, so it doesn't matter if some of the textures seep into our subject. Okay. So currently, if I need to select my brush layer to fill in that area. So currently, if I fill in that selection, so to fill a selection with the foreground color, so my foreground color is black. If I hold down Alt Delete or Option Delete, you'll see that it's filled everywhere but our owl. So I need to invert that selection. So Control Shift I or Command Shift I, that'll invert it. So now Alt or Option Delete, and I'll fill it with that foreground color. I'm just going to grab my brush tool. There's some patches here that I should fill in, so I'm just going to hit B. I'm going to right click and use the soft brush. I always include a soft brush in the top left hand corner of any brush set that comes with an action, so you can quickly access that. And I'm just going to quickly brush over some of these areas down here, maybe just a little bit here. Alright, so that's that. So yeah, just make sure that you are filling in your selection on the brush layer. Some people have been filling their selection on the background layer, okay, and that's going to cause all sorts of errors, so it has to be on the brush layer. Alright, next you need to load up the Actions panel. So go to Window, Actions, it'll pop up here. Click on this icon and go to Load Actions. Select grunge2.atm and it will pop up here. Okay, so if you twirl this open, there are all the different actions. There's 12 different actions here, and basically they apply a different color look to the design. So you can fill around each one of those, but I'll go into more detail with all this soon. Now, before we run the action, always make sure that your brush opacity is at 100%. So hit B, okay, and if you look up here, opacity, always make sure that's at 100%. With any action that requires brushes for the action to work, opacity must be set at 100%. Alright, and another good habit before running any action, okay, is to go to Edit, Purge, All, and that'll just wipe out any history that's banked up in Photoshop, because Photoshop can sometimes trip over its own feet when running actions and just cause strange errors, and that can sometimes fix it. Edit, Purge, All. Okay, ready to go now. So yeah, I'll get my Actions panel open, select Grunge2, and so I'm just going to open up that example. So for this particular design, I use the vintage preset. So I'll close it down. Now, about 3/4 of the way through the action, there's going to be 2 pop-ups, and they're basically going to prompt you to import the brush texture to overlay over your design, and also the background texture. So I'm just going to play the action, and I'm just going to speed the video up to get to that point and sort of explain what's going on with those pop-ups. Okay, so the first message has popped up and it says, in the next step you need to select a paint texture to place over your subject. The paint textures can be found in the paint textures folder, which I've included in the download. After you've positioned the texture, hit enter on the keyboard to resume the action playback. Click continue below to proceed. So all you need to do here is click continue, and a window will pop up, and so it's asking us to navigate to the paint textures folder, okay, and basically select a paint texture. I've included 19 different ones, so I think for this one I used number 5, okay, and you'll notice that it now comes into Photoshop, but the action's not playing back yet. So what you can do here is just scale, position this texture wherever you want, and it doesn't matter if you don't get 100% right here. When the action's finished, if I keep everything layered so you can move this texture around wherever you want. So I'm just going to position it there, and I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard, and now you'll notice that the action is playing back. Now in a few moments there's going to be another pop-up window, so I'll wait till that happens. Oh, here it is here. So it says, in the next step you need to select a background photo to place over your design. I've included some background photos which can be found in the background photos folder in the download. Yeah, and I've also put links in the readme file to other locations where you can get heaps of really cool high-res photos for free. So again, once you've positioned the background photo, hit enter on the keyboard to resume the action playback. Click continue below to proceed. So I'm just going to click continue. So now I'm going to navigate to the background photos folder, and for this design I use this picture here. So I'm going to select that, Okay, so again, the action's not playing. It's asking us to position and move it, and then hit enter. So I'm just going to zoom out, Control or Command minus. I'm just going to scale this over my entire design, and then I'm going to hit enter. And again, the action will play back. So that's all you need to do. So the action's going to now run to the finish, and yeah, and so when the action's done, I'm just going to go through every single layer, talk about how it affects the design, and then I'll go on to customizing this design to match it up with the example that I showed at the start of the tutorial. So I'll just fast forward the video now, and I'll get to the result. Okay, so the action's done, and you can see the result. Okay, so I'm just going to collapse the actions panel, and we'll look into the layer panel now. So the first thing you always want to do when an action's finished playing back is collapse all these folders that are open. So to do that, just hold down Control Alt or Command Option on a Mac, and click on this arrow on the Grunge2 folder, and that just collapses all the folders, so everything's much neater. Alright, so I'm just going to go through all these layers now to give you an idea of what everything does, and then yeah, I'll open up those two other examples, and I'll show you the workflow that I use to just quickly get those results. So, firstly, we'll just go down from the top. So firstly, if you open the color options folder, you'll see that there's 10 different color options, and basically the way they work is that you just turn on the eye for the folder, okay, and it'll apply a different color grade. So that's really cool. That's all you need to do. And so with these presets here, like vintage, all these 12, you'll notice that when you finish playing the action, I've combined different ones to give the overall color look. Okay, so you can, these are just presets, so you can just go off and change any one of these color options, mix and match them if you want, to get a new look. Okay, overall contrast, if you turn this one on and off, you can see how that affects the design. So that actually adds quite a lot to the look, so you really don't need to play around with this one too much. This one here, you want to play around with a little. It's called Overall Contrast 2. In brackets, I've got opacity. So whenever I've got a layer, in brackets opacity, I'm telling you to play around with this layer's opacity. So currently it's at 60%. So if I just click on this word opacity, hold and drag to the left and right, you can see I'm just dragging it from 0 to 100. So start off at 0 and slowly drag to the right, and then get to something that you think looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to leave that at about 54%. So that's how you want to play around with that layer. Now these two are quite important, okay? Particularly this one here, called Reveal Original Photo, and in brackets I've got Brush Mask, okay? So currently this mask is black, which means I'm hiding everything on that layer. If I just invert that layer, invert that layer mask, Control or Command I, you'll see it's brought back all the original luminosity of our photo. So what this is good for is your points of interest. So I really want this owl's face to stand out a lot more. So what I like to do is just select the mask, I'll hit B, right click, I'll grab my soft brush, and I'll make sure that the brush is white because I want to reveal this layer. And I'll just use the square brackets to adjust the brush size, and just brush over his face like that. Okay, and you can see if I turn that layer on and off, if I turn that layer on and off, you can see the before and after. See how the face pops out a lot more. But generally what I like to do is not use it as at its 100% opacity. I'll just drag this opacity down a bit to blend between, so there's 0, there's 100. So maybe I want it at about, about 60%. Okay, so this layer is going to be really handy for, if people are your subjects and there's a lot of texture and stuff over the subject's face, you quickly brush into this layer mask to reveal, the original luminosity. Now this one here is called Reveal Original Photo Color, okay, and I've got in brackets Brush Mask. So if I just hold an Alt Option, click on this mask to go inside, you'll see that you've got this cloudy texture, and so the original color is just going to show up in a little bit throughout these greyish tones. If I hold down Shift to hide this mask, Shift click, you'll see what it's done. It's overlaid all the original color on top of our subject. If I put it back on, you'll see that the original color is just showing up in patches that's because of this texture. So if you want to add some, I'm just going to open up that owl example. So you can see the owl's eye, how it's nice and orange, and then this one sort of grayed out because of the color applied through here. So if I want to bring back the original color of that owl's eye, all I need to do is select that mask, hit B, brush white onto his eye, and I'm going to bring back the original color. So you can brush that anywhere you want. Okay, so use these two layers here, this one to bring back the luminosity, this one to bring back the color. Alright, randomize colors, you can just double click on this one and play around with this handle here, and basically any layer below here where there's color affecting the design, you can quickly adjust it with this handle here. Alright, now background photo, so you'll notice that by default I haven't turned on the background photo that we imported. It's because I want you to take notice of all the texture in the background and control where you want this background photo to appear. So if you just turn on the background photo folder, the visibility here, click that on, you see that there's our background photo. Okay, now what I don't want is all this texture down the bottom here, and I only want this photo to appear in certain areas, and I want to control how its visibility in those areas as well. So if we go inside here, we've got two layers. We've got this one here, black and white. If you turn that off, basically that'll just bring back the original color of your photo. So if you turn it on, black and white, and here is our background photo layer. So you can just turn that off and it's gone. So what you'll notice here, it's got a mask. So if I go inside that mask, you can see that I've completely blocked it out from entering our subject, and it appears, randomly throughout this grey texture. These white textures in the background. So you can see, it fades off and then comes back in, and just helps with the overall look of the design. So if you want to, say if I want this area here to be much more prominent, I'll select the mask, hit B, I'll grab a black brush. To flip between black and white here, just hit X. So now black is my active color. And also I need to brush white because I want to reveal it. So you see, as I start brushing white, I'm bringing back a lot of the visibility of the photo. Okay, you can see that there in the mask. And so you can get the background photo to intercept with your subject. All you need to do is brush it on. So now if I want to remove it, I just hit X. So now I'm brushing black, so I can erase it. So I can control specifically where this texture appears. So I'll brush away this area, just like that. Hit X, I want to reveal it. Okay, that looks really cool. And if you want a quick preview of the photo sort of overlaid over the entire design, including the subject, just hold down Shift and click on that mask. Okay, and now I get a quick preview of where I could possibly brush this texture on, which looks cool. So for example, these branches here over to the left. Okay, I'll just grab my white brush because I want to reveal it, the layer. I can just brush that on. Okay, and of course you can just move this. You're not restricted to that one position because that's where you place it during the action. You can scale it, rotate it, duplicate it, whatever. Now if you want to quickly replace this background photo with a different one, all you need to do is click right click and go to replace contents. Okay, now all you need to do now is navigate to another image. So I can select this clock. Okay, and now the clock has appeared in the design. If I hold down Shift to hide this mask, you can see there it is. So say if the first photo doesn't look that great, try another one. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that. Okay, so there's my background. And again, if you want to control the master visibility of everything in that folder, brush onto this mask. So I'll grab my black brush, brush away, and it's gone. Okay, so lots of flexibility over where you want the texture to appear. Okay, if you double click on this layer, I've controlled the way the texture interacts with the design through these blend if controllers. So you can play around with these handles here. You can see this mountain in the background, so I adjust this white handle. You see more white comes back in. Okay, and if you right click and go to clear layer style, it brings back basically the original look of the photo. Okay, you might prefer that, so that creates like a cool double exposure effect. You can see like the wings have sort of merged into the trees there. That looks pretty cool. So you can try that, and you might also be able to try adjusting the blend mode. So currently it's just set to pass through. You can try different things like screen. Okay, that looks cool. You can go to overlay. Just try different blend modes, see what you get. Alright, moving on. We've got this one here, main photo shadow. So by default, if you just turn this on and off, I've applied a shadow coming off your subject. Okay, you can adjust the opacity of that if it's too strong, or you could double click on this FX symbol, and in the layer style box here, just go down to the bottom and click drop shadow, and you can play around with the opacity here. Okay, going down, this is the paint texture folder. So if I turn this on and off, you can see that's the paint texture that we imported. So if we go inside here, there's 3 layers. So firstly, we'll just go down to the bottom here. The bottom one here is the paint texture. So if you move that around, position it where you want. Okay. And again, if I hold down Alt or Option, click on the mask, you can see I've restricted that paint texture to mainly appear within your subject. It appears a little bit throughout the rest of the design. Okay. If you want to preview the texture, you know, the paint texture going everywhere, again, just hold down Shift, click on that, and you'll see that it's revealed more of the texture, which I prefer here, so I'm just going to leave that mask hidden. Okay, this layer here, paint texture color, double click on that, and you can change the paint texture color. As simple as that. Okay, just go ahead and play around with the color. Now this, what I might do for this example is just turn this to white. Now this layer here, show photo details in brackets opacity. So if I adjust this opacity from 100 to 0, there's 0, there's 100. You can see the 100%, it brings back the original details of the bird's wings under the texture. So you can actually, if I bring it to 0, if you don't want any detail under the texture, okay, so it sort of looks like just sitting on top of the bird, you can do that. If you bring it up to 100, kind of looks like it's interacting more with the feathers, you know, like sinking in. Just blends a bit better. So adjust the opacity of that layer there. I'm just going to change this back to that cream color. Okay, and again, if you want to try a different paint texture, right click, replace contents, navigate to the paint textures folder, and just grab another texture. And there you go, it just instantly updates. Now, if you want to have multiple paint textures in the design, and you want to keep this layer structure here, what you need to do is select the paint texture folder, hit Control or Command J, that'll duplicate the entire folder. So what I've got now is a duplicate of that texture. You know, I can hit Control T, rotate it, do whatever. But what you'll notice, if I go right click, replace contents, and I select a texture, it's actually updated both of them. So I'll just undo that. It's updated both of them. So what I want to do is just right click on this paint texture here and click Use Smart Object via Copy, okay, and delete that bottom one. So now when I right click replace contents, I'll select this one. You'll see that it's just updated this particular texture. Okay, so now I can control the color of that. I'm going to turn on this mask, and I'm just going to move this into, I'm going to flip this vertically, move that down there. So you can see here the bird's feet, and if I turn that shadow photo details off, so it basically hides it and it brings it back in. So really cool layer to play around with. Alright, we're looking good. Let's keep going. Main photo, if I turn that on and off, you can see that just helps bring a lot of the visibility of your subject into the design. You go inside the 3 layers, you can turn them off one by one to see how it affects your design. Duplicate the entire folder, okay, it'll just make things appear a bit more prominent. So yeah, that actually looks pretty cool with it off. Like the way it sort of blends in with the trees here. Colours look cool. So I'm just going to, I'll turn that back on. Of course you can adjust the opacity of that folder. Maybe I only want it at like 73%. Okay, photo sketch. If you turn this on and off, can't really see too much. If I just zoom in here, Control Alt and 0 to zoom 100%. If I turn this photo sketch on and off, you can see a bit more clearly. It basically traces around your subject, all the contours with a little black line. Okay, so I'll zoom out. So just turn that layer on and off and see if you prefer it with it on or off. Maybe use the mask to control where you want those sketch lines to appear. So border, if you turn it on and off, pretty self-explanatory. If you go inside the border folder, you can change the color. Okay, so just pick a different color. Cancel. If I hold down Shift on this mask here, border texture, it removes the texture from the border. So if I turn it back on, you can see the texture applied. You can try things like flip it vertically, edit, transform, flip vertical. I'll undo and redo that so you can see what that's doing. And you can, like, I'll zoom out, hit Control T, you can scale that up and you can see the border changing again. Play around with it that way. Control or Command 0 to fit your design to screen. Now, let's keep going. Use single color fill. If you turn this on, basically it will just target the background, and again you can just change the color. Now, got these 2 folders here, jagged lines black, jagged lines white. So you can see this scratchy texture here with these lines. That's basically what this is. Turn it on and off. Okay. So I've gone inside, we have a couple of layers. The first one here, you can change the color. Okay, pretty simple. Now, this one here you want to play around with. I've just called it JL visibility, jagged lines visibility. If you double click on this, it's an exposure adjustment layer. So with the black lines, you want to play around with this exposure handle here. So as I drag that to the left and right, you can see, well, it's pretty dramatic the difference that it makes, but you just make small adjustments and it slowly fades away but keeps a lot of the texture, sort of eats into the texture. See that there as I'm adjusting that. So play around with that exposure handle if there's too many black lines, okay? You can play around with these other 2 as well. Now if you want to use the white lines, just turn black off, turn white on, and you'll see now it's all been replaced with white lines. Now with the white lines, if you go to the JL visibility layer, you want to play around with the gamma correction. Okay? So as I drag that to the left and right, you can see that working. Okay? And again, texture color. So this is for this design, I like black. If you want more lines, duplicate the entire folder. Okay, and go inside and adjust the position, rotation of the jagged lines layer. Background textures, if I turn that on and off, okay, you can see what that's doing. Go inside here, couple of different layers. So we've got smudge texture 1 and smudge texture 2. You want to play around with these colors here. Okay, so I'll just crank this up to a bright orange so you can see that's the texture 1. You know, make this black, white, yeah, just mess around. Dark green looks pretty cool. Okay, overall background texture, if I move this one around, you'll see that that layer adds quite a lot of texture to the background. Okay, you can try things like inverting it. So if I hit Control or Command I on that layer, it'll flip it all to black. Okay. What else could you try? If you wanted more texture, you could probably hit Control or Command J. You could rotate it. I'm just going to zoom out. You could rotate it, so then you've basically created a lot more texture. Okay, and then you could invert that, so then you've got a blend between a whole heap of white texture and a whole heap of dark texture. Okay, let's keep going. Background color, double click on this box. That'll apply a color over the background. So this layer here, use single color fill. This will basically overwrite any color changes you make underneath this layer. So all these, if you make color changes to, you know, this one or this one, it doesn't matter because this layer here is going to override it. Photo color tint, if you double click on this one, I'll crank this to a red, it will add a tint throughout your subject. So, you know, if you want like a yellowish tint, turn that down a bit, you can do that. And again, use the mask to adjust where you want that tint to appear. Alright, so I'm just going to flip off the visibility for this folder, and there's the before and after. So I basically put in no effort whatsoever and I've got this result, which is pretty cool. Alright, so I'm now going to open up the second example and I'll show you how I made it. Alright, so I've got the second example open now and I've run the action but I haven't touched any layers yet. So I'll tell you what I've done. I have just run the violet action. Okay, and that's it. That's what I got so far. So I'll collapse the actions panel, and again, Control Alt or Command Option. Click on this Grunge2 fold arrow to collapse all those folders. So if I turn off the Grunge2 folder, you can see the original photo. So just by default, it's actually created a really cool grunge look. I haven't really touched any layers yet. But what I'm going to do is just open up the example. So I'm going to recreate this. So there's not too much we need to do. Firstly, what I'm going to do is brush onto the reveal original photo layer. I'll just grab my white brush. I'm going to brush onto his face. Okay, now I'm going to adjust the opacity 0, bring that up a bit. So now his face sort of pops out a lot more. It's much more prominent. I'm just going to flick the color off to see what that looks like. Now what I could do here is, like, you know, it also doesn't look that great applied everywhere, but I'm looking around. Maybe I just want to like lose a bit of color from his arm here, just to give it like a bit more of a abstract look. So I'll brush black to remove some of that layer. Okay, now I'm going to turn on the background photo folder, see what we've got. So I'll go inside here. So this was the clock image, so if I just go right click, replace contents, whoops, go to background photos, so it's that clock photo there. Okay, now if I just check out the original, I can see that it's a bit bigger, so I'm going to select it. I'm going to zoom out, Control or Command minus, Control T, I'll scale that up. going to shift that over a bit, something like there. Control or Command 0 to fit the design to the screen. Okay, now what I'm going to do is hold down Shift on this mask. I'm just going to check out what the design looks like, basically with the texture intercepting everywhere. And it looks pretty cool, like particularly through here and down here, this bit of pattern up around his neck. So I'll turn it off. So I'm just going to grab my white brush because I want to reveal some of this layer. And I'm just going to start brushing in the areas that I thought looked really cool. So through here, down there. I'll hold down Shift again to preview it. A bit more up here. Looks pretty cool. I'm just going to double click on this layer and adjust these handles. I think that's looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to check out the white scratchy texture. So, sorry, the black. I think white suits this more. I'm just going to jump into the visibility and I'm going to play around with this gamma correction. Make those white lines sort of pop out a bit more. That's looking pretty cool. I'm just going to turn off the main photo folder, see what that looks like. So that actually looks pretty cool, and that's the technique I use for, you can see in the original design here, how he sort of fades off into just a silhouette down the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is select this mask. I'm going to hit G on the keyboard. That's the gradient tool over here. Okay, select that. Make sure this is set from black to white. Whoops, I can cancel that. Black to white. Now I'm just going to click and drag a straight line down the bottom here, and so you can see what that's done in the mask. Basically, I've removed what's in that folder in the black area and fades on to here. So that looks pretty cool. I'm just going to quite like it along the side here and up here. I think this is actually looking better than the original design, which is a good thing. I'm just going to just adjust the opacity of this overall texture just a little bit. So I've just dragged the opacity of the folder down a bit. I'm going to check out the photo color tint. Change it to... No, I think that... No, I think that color's good. I'm just going to check out the border color and make that a bit darker. If the border's too thick, you can just select the border texture layer, and I'm just going to zoom out. Control or Command T. I'm just going to scale that up a bit. That looks pretty cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to record which three folders create this overall color look. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3. So now I know if I turn these off, I know which 3 to use. And I'm just going to check out, these other folders to see if there's a better color look, a more suitable color look. I think the original one was pretty cool anyway. Yeah, so I go 3, 2, 1, and there we go. Just going to check out the contrast. I think that's pretty cool. Alright, let's check out the before and after. So a massive difference, and it looks really cool. Alright, I'll open up the last example. Okay, so I've got to open the last example now, and I have run the candy preset, so you can see that's the color you get. Now, so what we're going to try and create is this. Okay, so there's a bit of work to do, but it's really simple, so let's get into it. Control or Command Option, click on that folder arrow, collapse all the layers. Now, firstly, what I want to do is, you see in this example here, the face is nice and clear. In this example here, it's got a bit of texture over it and a bit of pink color I don't want. So straight into that reveal original photo layer, grab my white brush. I'm just going to brush like that. Okay. Now, what's creating this pink overtone on our subject is the photo color tint down the bottom here. So if you turn that on and off, if I turn it off, it just falls down onto this layer here, which is our background layer, original photo. So I can just select this mask here. I'm just going to brush black because I want to hide some of that layer. Just going to brush onto the mask. So now we've got like the original colors and the original luminosity. So life is good. Alright, now the original photo color, I'm just going to turn that on and off to see. Basically what I'm looking for is what looks better with it off. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my black brush. I'm just going to brush away in here and on the hand a bit. Alright, okay, so I've switched this to black. I'm just going to adjust this visibility, the exposure, just a bit. Might actually check this out with maybe like a. No, I think we just keep it black. Might lower the opacity down the folder. That's a bit better. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the background photo. Okay, so you can see what we need to achieve here. You see that the photo is cutting through our subject. Just gives it a cool look. So I'm just going to move this photo up. Okay, and I'm going to move it to the side here. I actually think that's a different photo. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to zoom out a bit and scale this up a fraction. Okay, so what I need to do is remove this sharp line at the bottom here. That's basically, whoops, I forgot. That is basically the bottom of our photo. So how can I do that? Just select the mask, grab a black brush, and brush that away, like that. Now, if I hold down Shift, I'll hide this mask. Okay, you can see the photo cutting through. So I'm just going to grab my white brush and brush over my subject. It is the same photo, sorry, I've just scaled it up a little bit more. So just like that. Let's zoom out. That's better. Zoom back in. Okay, that's already looking really cool. I'm just going to clear this layer style, check out how that's looking. I'm just going to play around with these handles. I think it looks okay. Alright. I'm going to hide the main photo folder to see I think it looks good with it on. Turn off the photo sketch layer to see how that affects things. Might just brush away a little bit on the top here on a beanie. Alright, play around with the contrast. Just going to have a quick look at the paint texture color. I think the original colors are cool anyway, so I'll leave that. Now, I've noticed what I've done here. You can see how I've blended basically the whole grunge effect it sort of fades off into the original photo background. You can see that there, but I've kept the effects on top of our subject. So how on earth do we do that? So if I turn off the grunge folder, see there's our original photo, there's the area that I traced around. Okay, so what I want to do here is select the Grunge2 folder mask. Okay, hit X, make that sure that's set black to white. I'm going to hit G, grab my gradient tool, and all I'm going to do here is draw a line from the bottom about halfway up, and you can see all that's doing is masking out everything that's inside the Grunge2 folder just in that black area. So just going to okay, that looks pretty cool. Now, what we need to do is, you can see how it's removed all the grunge effects from her legs. I want to bring that back. So what I need to do is hold down Control or Command and click on our brush layer. Okay, so that's basically made a selection around our subject, which is what we want. Now I want to select the folder mask, and I want to fill that selection with white. Okay, because I want to reveal that area of our mask here. So if I hold down to fill a selection with the background color, hit Control or Command Delete. Okay, just going to deselect that. I'm just going to hide those guides. So now you can see if I go inside this mask, Alt or Option click, you can see that because we created that selection and filled it white, it has it's basically going to reveal what's inside that folder in our white area. So that's created a really cool effect. So you can see you got these really nice overlaid effects on her legs, these textures, but it falls onto the original background. So that's a really cool tip if you want to get creative that way. I think that's pretty much it. I think we covered everything. And don't forget, I haven't even added text to these designs yet, and that'll just take it to a whole new level. So download some cool fonts, play around with background textures, play around with duplicating the paint texture folder, putting splashes everywhere. Yeah, and just mess around with all these different presets. You'll have a lot of fun. You'll come up with some cool results. Just check back on these videos if you're stuck on what particular layers do. But just a little bit of fiddling around and you'll be able to pump out these designs really, really fast. Okay, that's it. I hope you have fun using the action. Any questions or troubles, just let me know. Thanks.